Hi there! Today I want to talk about the structure of digital storytelling. The first thing you need to know is that structure is different from plot. Structure is a method of organizing works of digital storytelling, but the plot consists of the very basic beats of the story. It connects the pieces of the narrative together. Now, you may wonder, who designs the structure? Well, the answer to that is game designers, computer programmers, producers, and directors. But everybody in the creative team has a say. Now I want to talk about the BBB, or the basic building blocks of digital storytelling. These are the small units of material that are interconnected into a whole project. In linear drama, the basic units are called story beats, that then are organized into scenes and then into acts. Linear narratives also follow something called a 3-act structure. In the first act, an event gets the story going. In the second act, explores and develops conflict, relationships, amongst others. The third act resolves the conflict and everybody's happy. In interactive narratives, the smallest units are called action and decision points. These are the places where the user can make a choice or perform an action, like picking up things or interacting with other characters. The bigger units are often called levels. Each level takes place at a different setting and has different challenges that become more and more difficult as the user advances. Now, let's talk about something called the if-then construct. Decision and action points trigger specific events to happen. In digital storytelling, this means that if the player does B, then A will happen, or vice versa. There's also something called the Boolean logic, and is based on 2 variable outcomes. It could be true or false, live or die, etc. This is also called a binary choice. Digital storytelling works also follow branching structures. These are made up of many interconnected if-then constructs. That means every time a player makes a choice, he or she will be presented with a set of choices, and once they advance, a new set of choices will appear. There's also something called Fox choice or false logic. In this case, the user is presented with several options, but no matter what they pick, the result will be kind of like the same. Storytelling works also have runaway structures. These include cul-de-sacs, loopbacks, and barriers. Now I want to talk about the critical story path. This is the path that contains everything the user must do or discover in order to achieve the full story experience and reach the meaningful endpoint. The CSP is a 4-step process. The first step is to make a list of the critical beats. The second is to determine what needs to be conveyed. The third is to determine the essential actions the user must perform. And the fourth, determine the interactive possibilities. There are a couple of structural models that support the critical story path. One of them is referred to as a string of pearls. Each of the pearls is a world, and players are able to move freely inside each of them, but in order to progress, they must perform certain tasks. Another one is called the passenger train model. Users move in a linear path. They begin at the end of the engine of the train and work their way down car by car until they reach the car boot's end. Other structural models are kind of like spaces to explore, where the user has more freedom. One of them is called exploration. It's a free-range environment where users can navigate through it in any direction. For example, a scavenger hunt. A sandbox is another free structure. This has no specific goals to achieve and no victory conditions. They have no plot, but provide players with things to manipulate and do. More angular models include the hero's journey. This is structured around the myth that the hero must survive and triumph over the challenges and ordeals. Another angular model is referred to as a funnel, or kind of like a pyramid. Here, players start at the fattest end of the pyramid and have a large degree of freedom. But as they advance, the choices become more constrained. In a coal mine model, you gather new materials via a series of links and move through lateral and vertical passageways. Parallel worlds contain several layers to the story. Each is set in its own virtual world, and the user can jump between them. Now it's going to get really complicated because I'm going to talk about the most sophisticated story models. The Rashomon model contains several versions of the same story, and each version is seen from the point of view of different characters. In the archaeological dig, the narrative takes place in a long period of time, and the user digs down through these different time periods to reconstruct the story. In the electronic construction kit, users are given a number of story components and use them to assemble their own stories. In the Rhizome model, each piece of the story can be connected to every other piece, and there's no end point and no way out, kind of like a maze. The hidden story contains two layers of narrative. The first contains clue to a story that took place in the past. The users explore the top layer to uncover the second layer, aka the hidden story. Finally, the fractal structure is a story that doesn't advance but instead expands.